Greetings and welcome to another live stream with Karen. I'm here today to talk a little bit about what your diet might be doing to you. Now, a lot of times when I was a young girl and growing up, we just eat what's in front of us. You know, our parents go to the grocery store, and what's in the grocery stores, convenience stores, and all over is just considered food. But a lot of it is really no longer food in the same way that a lot of what is offered in pharmacies is really not medicine. Now, in the old ways, the ways that I trained with my grandmother, Etna, my maternal grandmother, back in San Jose, California, starting in 1965 as a young girl, were that we had more subtle ways to heal. Now, can we always do that? Not all the time, for sure. And we still respect doctors. But I'm going to go into a little bit of detail, and I think you're going to find it really useful, and it's going to make a lot of sense for you about why some of your diet is doing harmful things to you. And little by little by little, what happens is these little accumulations, a little slower brain processing speed, a little more brain fog, a little more inflammation, a little more stomach pain, a little longer on the toilet in the morning, and they start to add up. Now, if you compound the new job, maybe some toxic coworkers, maybe you start taking the stress out on a couple of cigarettes, or you're starting to do a lot more vaping. Now, when you're vaping and smoking, you're a lot less inclined to go out and take a walk. You're not moving your circulation, your lymphatic system, you're not stimulating peristalsis, which is what we do when we walk. We're able to get the digestive system and the elimination system moving just by touching the foot in a nice flexible sole or with no shoes on the ground. Things that we also do when you're on the massage table. We get a lot of stagnant energy, congestion, lymphatic fluids, moving circulation, blood flow. All are positive. We get those moving for you. So the first food I'm going to mention is going to be wheat. Now there's entire books like Grain Belly and Wheat Belly, and there's so many different books that talk about why wheat is toxic, but here's the gist of it. The gist of it is that about 45 years ago, wheat was completely changed. And so for all of our amber waves of grain and all of our, beautiful ways that we acknowledge America, as beautiful as it is, and all of the agriculture that is as powerful and wonderful as it is, our grains are not the same as they used to be. So nice tall strands of amber wheat are now modified, hybridized, maybe so far as to say genetically modified. You hear people talk about GMOs, right? Genetically, they've been mutated, altered, hybridized intentionally to make it convenient for the farmer. So it's a much shorter, stockier strain of grain. In so doing, it changed the amount of gluten in the actual wheat itself by condensing it, and the grain was actually bred, B-R-E-D, into something that your gut no longer recognizes as food. If you look at natural selection, and you look at how we adapt to our environment, we feed from our environment, we breathe and live and medicate and heal ourselves, we have never had ample time to be able to adapt our microbiome, our gut, to eating something that is so harmful to the gut as wheat today. But stop and think for a moment. If I go out to breakfast with my son or with Anthony or a friend, and I go have pancakes, waffles, muffins, breaded chicken nuggets, you name it, right? It's in everything, everywhere you go. Gluten and wheat And so the response from the medical industry is to label it celiac sprue many years ago, or simply celiac disease. And people then had a way of communicating that their doctor had affirmed for them that they no longer could tolerate wheat, or typically they refer to it as they can't eat gluten. Now, even some of the young people's friends are now going to places like the Juice Farm and other places because they know that they're not going to feel so good if they don't eat something out of a clean food source. If you don't start your day with something like this chai blended smoothie. I made real chai in my stock pot yesterday. I let it get nice and condensed, like you'd buy an aseptic box of chai, and then you'd mix it half and half with your milk. I took my chai herbs right out of the tea section at your natural food store, and maybe about a half a cup of chai to a huge stock pot, and now I've got a huge pitcher of chai in my refrigerator during the summer to enjoy cold chai for pennies on the dollar comparatively, and no aseptic boxes are going in to my landfill. It also served as an aromatic for my home, so it makes my house smell like chai even when you have dogs like I do. You have dogs living with you. So that's my hot little tip about the chai. Moving away from wheat, it will take you months to sometimes up to 2 years to detoxify your body just from eating wheat, because it's barbous. It's got barbs in it now, this shorter, compact bread strain of grain, which almost 45 years ago was invented and is now in everything. So if you're getting a white bread sandwich, organic whole wheat grain sandwich at a fancy deli, it doesn't matter. It's all got the wheat in it. So I need to avoid, and you need to avoid those things, because the gut begins to get bloody and damaged. And then if you go to your doctor and you've got enough stomach pain, doctor's going to tell you you've got leaky gut. Now, they might go in and do an endoscopy, which means that, you're going to get on the table similar to a colonoscopy, perhaps with anesthesia. And they're going to put a tube down your throat, and they're going to check from the esophagus and the esophageal sphincter all the way down into the gut. And they're going to be able to see that it's bloody and it's got tears and holes, because the gut needs to be, cared for with plant-based food. So wheat is something I'd really avoid. And I want you to just really start noticing how much we feed what we call the poor, our second harvest food banks, our homeless shelters, okay, our hospitals where people are recovering. Even some of my clients have gone on later when it's more difficult, when this food is everywhere, in everything, on every shelf, on every menu in most restaurants and delis and stores that we stop at to eat. And they've gone to places that are thousands of dollars to lay down and detoxify. And again, they were fed wheat, beans, brown rice. If you want to heal someone, we go for a plant-based diet. Not because I'm a bleeding heart for the animals inside of these horrific places, but because they've been modified too excessively. So the second food I'm going to talk about with regard to what the food's doing to you, what your diet may be doing to you, is dairy. Now, I quit dairy about 35 years ago. I found out through Pamela Masters, who educated me on raw foods for reversing cancer, that in fact dairy was producing excessive amounts of mucus and phlegm. Now, we know if we go anywhere that we have a cold and a flu season, we call it, you can't help but hear people talking, adults talking about how the kids were kind of spreading things and they caught it. But the truth be told, and this I learned from Michael Tierra and Christopher Hobbs, who were considered some of the world's best herbalists when I became an herbalist at the American School of Herbalism in Santa Cruz. When Michael Tierra said in that classroom when I first began in my first month to become an herbalist, he said, colds are cleansing opportunities. I sat there and my jaw dropped. I said, you got to be kidding me. I always assumed that I caught a cold. Isn't that what you hear? I caught a cold. Well, that started to absolve young children from being the culprits of spreading this thing that I was going to be suffering from. And I started to deepen into, thanks to Michael, thank you, Michael, overstanding that in fact, if I filled my eustachian tubes, these tubes that go up here to the ears and then over to my sinuses, and I was smoking, which I was smoking a lot of cannabis starting in 1975, and I was smoking, and I was eating cheese, putting milk on my cereal, eating wheat that was congesting my thyroid and congesting me and hurting my gut. I didn't know these things. But now that I had the mucus built up in there, it was only a matter of time before bacteria set in because the mucus didn't belong there. So now, if I didn't give my body a time-honored detoxification, if I didn't realize wheat is killing me, dairy is producing excess phlegm and mucus, it's attracting bacteria to these gobs of mucus, balls. We all know we've seen the clear, the yellow, the green. We know what mucus looks like when it starts to become infected with bacteria and potentially viruses. But now an entire industry was being created around vaccinating people for the flu, which I found absolutely ludicrous because there never could be concocted or grown on embryonic or fetal tissue a virus or a bacteria that would prevent you from getting the flu, no different than you can prevent a dog from getting heartworm by giving them something as oxymoronic as a heartworm medication. All you do is kill the worm should it go to the dog's heart. You can't prevent that really besides deterring a worm because the dog's so poisoned. You don't want to keep poisoning your dog every day. In the executive level coaching that I provide, over 34 years now, I help by listening and finding out exactly what you want and also maybe letting you know maybe what you might need so that I can maybe save your life, so I can help you reverse that disease. And I talk about these foods just as I do in my book, Detox and Heal Your Thyroid. Now, if all you ever knew was that you go get checked at the doctor and you pull some blood out of your arm and it goes on a one-size-fits-all range, and you either go out the door or not with a diagnosis code and over to the pharmacy you go and maybe over to schedule your surgery, right? You'd never know that the many, many men that I see walking around with huge, wide backs and bigger bellies than they would like to have, some of them all the way to bowling ball bellies, could more easily be resolved. Their pain could be gone by taking them off wheat and dairy. But that didn't mean they had to suffer. In fact, I gave people creative, beautiful options, excuse me, where they could make drinks like this, actually shave money off their food budget, have more energy, not wake up in the morning feeling stiff and sore, tired and depressed. Because depression is a natural facet of life, but how you handle it is something different. If you're toxic and full of mucus, you're stiff and your gut is destroyed and leaky, chances are your depression is going to be exponentially worse than if you had cleaned and cleared out the body. Then winter comes along and you're not dealing with colds and flus anymore once you give your body what it was asking for. The third food, because the first was wheat and the second was dairy, and dairy means what? Cow milk, dairy-based cheese, sour cream, cottage cheese, and there's more, dairy-based yogurts. You've been told to go get certain brands of yogurts that they contain probiotics, And testing has proved time and time again that that is untrue. So I would rather have my clients go and buy an $18 bottle of Pro 10 or a good bottle of Saccharomyces if they're in a critical situation, and really get them some results right away, the same way I use them for my canine companions. When they start to get red and itchy and yeasty, it's because of the excessive amount of antibiotics and growth hormones and chemicals and copper in the number 3. Excuse me. Number 3, the food that might be making you not feel so good, is factory farmed animals. If you wake up in the morning and you've always been used to having an egg, some toast, and some bacon, like a lot of people in my generation, I'm just on the cusp of being called the baby boomer generation. I'm 57. And I work with a lot of people as an executive level coach that are between 53 and 75. These are loyal, confident, capable of good levels of self-discipline and putting together a plan. And they also have the money to spend to get well, and they have a will to live. They know they can live a lot longer, and they want to live stronger and better. They're not willing to accept what the doctor gave them necessarily as an absolute death sentence. Much like the case of Parkinson's that I'm working with right now. If you detoxify, you strengthen the gut, and you do some of the things that I'm doing with Parkinson's disease, you would find out that eventually many instances will be absolutely reversed. You can't guarantee anyone an absolute cure or a reversal. Not only would that be ethically immoral, but it would be legally a liability. So what we can do is we can always do our best, but I have found phenomenal success with reversing disease, and I have testimonials to back that up. I have decades of this work, and that's why I'm an executive level coach. Food number 3 is factory farmed animals. The eggs have been given hideous amounts of copper by farmers and industrial farmers today inside of warehouses. That copper translates into having an imbalance in the body between bacteria and viruses. So people are going to be much more prone to viruses by taking in excessive amounts of copper. It also affects our moods. We know that there's no shortage of new personality, bipolar, schizophrenic, psychotic, and borderline personality disorders, codes, systems, diagnoses that are being given. In fact, where bipolar was relatively rare in the 1960s for me to hear about it, it's pretty darn common today that I can be working inside of a day spa where I rent space 3 days a week and see clients in person, and I can overhear constantly hemochromatosis, bipolar, we don't know what's wrong with her, she's just crazy. And all of these are mental and emotional instabilities, which are the result of derangements. The diet is one part of the coaching work that I can and will do with you to help you stabilize yourself. Factory farm meats and eggs are full of copper. That's a big red flag. This is a problem. It's a problem for our children. It's a problem when it comes to ADHD. It's a problem when it comes to ODD. It's a problem with these mood disorders. It's a problem with brain fog. It's a problem with too many viruses inside of the body. It's a problem with parasites inside of the body. And I could keep going. And it's well substantiated with many of the doctors and researchers and PhDs in chemistry that I've actually read from. And I often give to my clients because they want to see that there's empirical, solid, evidence-based, double-blind studied science behind what I talk about. So whether it's a PubMed medical abstract, or it's a PhD in chemistry, or the owner of the lab that I work with, Dr. Watts, with trace elements, I want to make sure that I've provided sound advice with the quotation of a book, a passage, or some sort of other tangible empirical science that will back up what I have to say. Now, with factory farmed meats, we have multiple generations of people, meaning over 60 to 75 years now, so your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and their great-great-grandparents have all consumed excessive amounts of female estrogen. That was used so that the chicken babies would grow exponentially faster. The chicken breasts of yesterday in the 1960s, which were very small, today you go to the store, to the regular grocery store, and in the saran wrapped package is a gigantic chicken breast. So you see, the chicken of today and for the last 40 years is nothing like anything of natural origins. It's no longer a chicken. It is now a genetically, intentionally mutated, unnatural selection. We know natural selection and Darwin. This is an unnatural selection. If I could kind of make up something here and we can all laugh about that, but a chicken breast, a chicken leg, a chicken thigh is very toxic. Many people that I'm helping to heal are developing H. pylori bacterium. It is a very virulent virus that seats itself into the gut, and it's extremely difficult to get rid of for people that continue to consume factory farmed meat and animals and dairy and wheat. But it's not as difficult to get rid of with a solid plan. Maybe 6 to 8 consultations, we can help you get rid of H. pylori. For more complex issues like Parkinson's disease, MS, ALS, cancer, if it's really been set in, you're looking at much more, frequency with consultations. They might be daily, they might be weekly. It might be that you hire me to come out to your house and help you as a personal coach, executive level coach. Okay. I'm here to help with simple to very complex issues for people that don't want to keep beating around the bush and taking more blood tests and sitting under magnet scans, toxic injected dye scans. They really want to get to the heart of what's wrong and how they need to heal it because they want to get on to living. Copper, estrogen, toxic water, and toxic foods that have been given to these factory farmed animals, these sentient life beings, alongside the emotions. Now, you have emotions, they have emotions. If you were locked inside of a factory farmed warehouse with no real light, sunlight is the #1 source of energy for all life. It comes through a process of photosynthesis. Your cells, your mitochondria, your ATP, your way of forming energy in your body, all has to come through mineral, trace element balance, which comes through the sun. You photosynthesize it. It is a voltaic battery. These beings are sitting inside with no sunlight. They are sitting inside with horror and grim and being caged into a tiny cage where they cannot move with their young ripped away from them. Even if you don't feel for the animals, you must acknowledge that every time you have feelings, they course through your bloodstream, your lymphatic stream. Every stress reaction that you have affects your adrenal glands. You know about fight or flight, okay? And you cause a tensing. The tensing causes the body to produce more fibrin. The fibrin produces more cysts, nodules, and tumors in the body. So someone who's under hideous amounts of stress throughout their entire childhood, which is most of our children today, due to attachment disorders of being removed from their mothers, not having their mothers dying, mental health, breast, ovarian. Every other woman I speak with, young woman, tells me about PCOS, tells me about their fibrocystic breast disease, tells me how the doctor has them on metformin, tells me about how the suspicious nodule in their breast is now being treated with tamoxifen. Tamoxifen is chemotherapy on a daily basis, and the doctors want you to be on it for a minimum of 5 years for efficacy purposes to make sure it's efficient in doing what it needs to do to stave off you becoming cancerous. That's not the way you prevent cancer, the same way you don't prevent a heartworm by poisoning a dog every day, the same way you don't prevent the flu by giving a person a flu shot, which is a chemical cocktail. So As an original medicine person, often respected as a shaman, genuine, original medicine, meaning I don't just put your blood on a one-size-fits-all range. I'm looking at you, the person, through the screen, just like you're looking at me now. We're not striving to be perfect. We're striving to live a life and enjoy it and experience it and to build together. If we are so anxious and depressed from these 3 foods I've told you about today, which produce anxiety and depression, we will progressively distrust each other more and more. We will want more walls, more wars, more weapons. If we speak in a language about our own wellness and healing, as if we must combat that which is inside of us, conquer it, kill it, get rid of it, annihilate it, we will never heal ourselves. We will always continue to treat ourselves and never heal. I have spent my entire life putting hours in every single day because it is my passion. First, developing my intuition, developing an understanding of raw foods and becoming a plant-based nutritionist, learning the importance of how raw foods reversed cancer, becoming a detoxification expert, an herbalist, a massage therapist, a yoga instructor. 15 years of working the clay of the body and listening to the stories, reversing disease. Taking my basic understanding of mind-body medicine in 1984 when I learned about it from Louise Hay and You Can Heal Your Body, You Can Heal Your Life, and expanding it into keen observation and deep listening. So that when I'm working with you and I'm taking notes in my little journal and being with you, I'm able to come back in our later sessions and offer this up as someone who genuinely paid attention to you, not someone who looked at the laptop and quickly punched in and figured out what your diagnosis code is and where you're going to the pharmacy, but someone who actually cared enough to heal you, who cared enough to listen, who has decades of experience, who put every dime of her money while she worked in law as a paralegal, as my bread labor, into courses that cost thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to keep building on the foundation that Grandma taught me in the early 60s. It's kept me alive despite having a mouth full of amalgam fillings, despite having hideous amounts of stress and beautiful joys and travels. I've met people in different countries. I've learned from Mexican people, African people, Filipino people, people from East India, and I respect all. Diversity, ethnic diversity, indigenous people, melanated beings. We are all a world family, and we're not going to get anything anywhere close to building a world family if we continue to treat and not heal. These foods that I mentioned today are 3 primary foods that are going to entirely change your life. The wheat, once you stay off of it, the first step you do is not, oh, I'm not going to do these things. The first step you do is to observe. Where am I finding wheat? Oh my goodness, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. The dairy. Well, stay tuned for more live streams. Subscribe to Naturally with Karen and tell your friends about it, because I'm going to give real medicine, not alternative medicine, original medicine. I'm looking at the time to be mindful. Original medicine is not alternative medicine. It's not like some kind of a sideline. But today, people did not invest a lifetime into this, making it their everything, and they couldn't, because the weight of the dominant system is so heavy. It is so influential. It is so paid for through your insurance companies. It is so reinforced through your schools. I'm going to ask you, listen Feel my heart. Subscribe to my channel, Naturally with Karen. Tell people about it, not so I can get paid, so we can grow a world family instead of more borders and walls. Instead of dreaming about how America can be like it used to be, let's put in the work. I'm putting in the work. You can put in the work. Together we can rise in a way of becoming whole again. We can use what the elders like myself, those over 55, who would have been babies long ago when we lived 360 years, like the obsolescent light bulb that used to last forever and now gives you so many incandescent hours that become shorter and shorter. Let's keep our elders. Let's nourish our babies. Let's take care of the young mamas that are struggling so much. You don't have to suffer. I'm here for you. You can find me at naturallywithkaren.com on my website. You can send me a contact. You can sign up for my email list and see what I write. You can tell other people about my channel. It took me a long time because I'm an elder and I wasn't as techno-savvy as a lot of you younger folks. I might look a little different than you. I might have natural hair and it's all my hair. There's no extensions in there. I might not always be perfect. I might be a little overworked on occasion. I have my own stressors. But I'm here for you and I have the real deal. I encourage you to share it. So I'm going to send you love and I'm going to say so long for now and make it a blessed day. All right. One